About a year ago, I discovered this amazing Australian animated television series called Bluey. There's a good chance you've heard about it. For those of you who haven't, I'll give out the quick synopsis. To put it in basic terms, the show basically follows the adventures of a 6-year-old blue heeler dog named Bluey, and along with her family and friends. As a teenager, I wasn't sure if I would enjoy a show aimed at preschoolers, but I have a lot to say. I was pleasantly surprised. Bluey is a refreshing break from all the intense and serious TV shows out there. It's lighthearted, funny, and it was incredibly relatable too. However, a few months ago, I remember coming across a particular episode of the show, and I figured how now would it be a good time to get this incident off my chest. This episode, what I'm about to tell you, was an unreleased episode of Bluey, and that was never supposed to be aired. The creator of the show, Joe Burham, stated in the email that the episode would be deemed unsuitable for children. Now you're probably wondering to yourself, if this episode was never shown to the public, how did I manage to come across it in the first place? Well, to be completely honest, the answer to that question is so crazy that you might not believe me. It was a typical Friday afternoon, and I was in my room, lying on my bed, watching some of my favorite Bluey videos on YouTube. The show never failed to put me in a good mood, and I loved how relatable the characters were. Suddenly, there was a knock at my door. "Come in," I called out, as the person on the other side of the door opened and walked in. It was my dad. He was holding a small cardboard box, with a confused look on his face. "Hey, Lucas, a package arrived for you," he said, holding out the package. I was rather confused. That was weird. I don't remember ordering anything. "Are you sure it's from me?" I asked. "Yeah, the package has your name on it," my dad replied. "Maybe it's a surprise from someone." "Just put it on my desk," I instructed my dad. "I'll open later." My dad nodded silently and did what I told him before he walked out of my room and closed the door without saying anything. I then continued to watch YouTube, trying my best to forget about this mysterious package. But every time I looked at it on my desk, I was getting more and more curious as to what could possibly be inside it. Eventually, curiosity got the best of me. I cautiously got out of my bed as slowly as I approached the box. You probably think I am making a big deal out of this whole situation. But when a package arrives for you, despite the fact that you haven't recently ordered anything, I was acting like how anyone else would act in my current situation. I slowly opened up the box to be met with a bunch of packing peanuts. After digging around the package of peanuts, I felt something that felt like a DVD case. Pulling out the source, it revealed to be a blank DVD case. No words, no barcode. It was completely blank. Confused, I took off the plastic of the case and opened it, making the disc inside drop to the floor. I looked down to see what had fallen out and saw a blank disc with the words written in Sharpie. When I saw the writing, it piqued my interest. Bluey unreleased episode. Now, I had watched every episode of Bluey multiple times and know them all by heart, but an unreleased episode? That was something I never thought I would get the chance to see. I was curious because watching an episode of my favorite show that no one else had seen before would be a rare opportunity. But I was so skeptical because the package containing unreleased Bluey episode just doesn't appear out of thin air. Someone must have given it to me, but who? After a lot of consideration, I eventually decided to put this disc into good use, and I slowly but surely inserted in the disc into my computer. I heard the computer processing the disc as I minimized my Google Chrome browser and waited for my computer to fully progress the contents of the disc. Eventually, the video file appeared on my screen, and I clicked on it without second thought. Once I clicked on play video, the Bluey intro began, and it looked normal. I couldn't contain my excitement as I was currently watching a Bluey episode that was never supposed to be aired. But then a question entered my head. Why would this episode be unreleased in the first place? That was in this episode that was so bizarre that it was never released to the public? I was soon about to have those questions answered, but not in the way I could have expected. After the intro ended, the episode officially started. It began with the usual exterior of the healer's house that was in the beginning of the episodes. The episode then cuts to the living room, and it showed Bandit with Chili watching TV. The scene then showed outside of Judo's house where Bluey, Bingo, Layla, Jean, and Judo were running around and laughing, presumably playing a game of tag. I smiled at this because I found their laughs to be cute. "You're never gonna catch us, Bingo!" Bluey taunted, before she stuck her tongue out at her sister. "We'll see about that," Bingo replied with a mischievous smile. As Bluey, Bingo, Jean, Layla, and Judo continued to run around in the front yard, the camera zoomed out to reveal a white van pulling in front of the house. The van looked dented and had scratches all over it. Bluey and Bingo looked over in confusion, and then it showed up a close-up of the van as the windows rolled down, revealing the driver of the van, which looked to be a black-colored pug with white spots on his body around his eyes. The driver also appeared to have a small stubble. "Hey kids, would you like some sweeties? I have some delicious treats here," the stranger said in a voice that sounded like he had smoked a whole pack of cigarettes. "No, thank you, we're fine," Bluey replied, while in an uncomfortable tone. "Yeah," Bingo added while nodding. "Our mom and dad says don't talk to strangers, and sweeties are also bad for us." The stranger persists, trying to convince them to come closer to the van. "Are you sure? It's really good sweets in there. You don't want to miss out." Bluey and Bingo backed away slowly, trying to keep a safe distance from the van. Bluey spoke up bravely. "No, thank you. We don't want it," she said firmly. The stranger then groaned himself. "Very well, but can you at least check the back of my van? I think there's a big dent back there." Bluey and Bingo hesitated for a moment, giving each other an unsure glance. "Okay then," Bluey replied, as her and Bingo cautiously approached the back of the van, examined it closely. "I don't see anything," Bingo said to the stranger, but then she received no response. "Hello?" There was a brief moment of silence as the music got more and more tense. All of a sudden, the doors to the back of the van burst open, and the stranger was standing there, which seemed to scare me so much that I almost fell out of my chair. Bluey and Bingo both screamed as the stranger grabbed them and threw them in the back of the van, then knocked them unconscious with a baseball bat and tied them up. Then Judo, Layla, and Jean just made a run for it, and the stranger chased them. Luckily, they managed to escape. "Trats!" said the stranger. "They got away. Oh well, at least I kidnapped 2 kids." He then got into the van. The scene then changed back to Bandit and Chili, who were watching TV when suddenly Bluey and Bingo's screams that were heard outside. "What was that?" Bandit asked. Suddenly, Judo, Lila, and Jean burst through the door. "A stranger kidnapped Bluey and Bingo!" yelled Judo. With that, Bandit and Chili quickly ran out of the living room and out onto the front yard, in time to see the stranger drive off in the van. But before he drove around the corner, they could faintly hear the voice of Bingo shout, "Mom, Dad, we're trapped, help!" "Oh no," Chili cried out on the verge of tears. "Our kids are gone," Bandit said in tears, and they both started crying. "Don't worry," said Jean. "We'll rescue you kids." The episode then showed a title card, and the episode was called Stranger Danger, with a knife above text. Usually Bluey's voice would say that what the episode's called, but it was dead silent, which freaked me out even more. I was confused and freaked out. Why was that knife doing in the episode of the show? My questions were interrupted when, after the title card, the episode showed a bird's eye view of the shot of the van driving down the road. Then I heard sad piano music playing as the scene continued. It then showed the van driving off on the road and into what looked like a precluded part of the forest. The forest was dark and there was no light source. When the van came to a stop, it cut to the inside of the van, where Bluey and Bingo were tied up and knocked out unconscious, as they both had bruises on their heads. Then I noticed that there was a baseball bat in the background. The van's doors opened, revealing the stranger's shadow on the van's interior walls, before the screen slowly faded to black for about 10 seconds. The scene faded back in it to show a small cabin in the forest. I assumed that's where the stranger had taken Bluey and Bingo. I then heard the sound of crying as it faded to show the inside of the cabin. The scene showed Bluey and Bingo, still tied up, crying as they both sat in the empty cabin. When empty, I really mean it. There was no furniture anywhere inside the cabin. "Bluey, I'm scared. I want Mom and Dad," Bingo said tearfully. "Me too, Bingo," Bluey replied silently, just as sad as she was. All of a sudden, the door of the cabin creaked open to reveal the same stranger, as he had a crooked smile on his face. Bluey and Bingo turned to him with looks of worry on their faces, but just when Bluey was about to speak, the stranger walked up to them and promptly slapped her and Bingo in the face. "Keep your mouth shut," the stranger shouted, "or I'll shut them up for you." "But," Bingo began, before the stranger turned to her. "Don't you start," he shouted again. "There's no use screaming. No one can save you." "What are you gonna do to us?" Bingo asked worriedly. The stranger then pulled out a knife and said in a deep voice, "You'll find out soon enough." Without another word, the stranger then proceeded to walk slowly towards Bingo and Bluey. Both were screaming and frantically trying to untie themselves, but were unsuccessful. They constantly begged the stranger not to hurt them, but it was no use. Then the stranger showed no intentions of stopping. Suddenly I heard the sounds of police sirens, and I saw red and blue lights flashing on the screen. Just before the stranger could proceed what's happening, the door burst open, revealing a police officer, Layla, Jean, and Judo. "Everyone freeze!" the police officer instructed. "Stay right where you are." Two more police officers just entered the cabin, and as they charged at the stranger, pinning him down and putting him in handcuffs, while Judo, Layla, and Jean ran up towards Bluey and Bingo. "Are you little ones okay?" Judo asked, kneeling down to them. "Yeah, we're okay," Bluey replied, still a bit shaken up from the events that almost traumatized them. "Thanks for saving us, Judo, Layla, and Jean," Bingo said gratefully, as the kids smiled. "An all day's work," Layla said, as she, Jean, and Judo proceeded to untie the young healers. "Now let's get you back to your parents." The scene showed an aftermath, with the stranger being escorted to one of the police cars that surrounded the cabin, Whiston in handcuffs. As Bluey and Bingo were both led out of the cabin by Jean, Layla, and Judo, they looked around for a while until they saw Bandit and Chili taking another police car with worried looks on their faces. Chili's eyes were practically bloodshot from all the tears. "Mom! Dad!" Bluey and Bingo called down in illusion as they both raced over to their parents. "Oh, thank goodness you girls are okay," Chili said, kneeling down and putting her hands on Bluey's shoulders. "I was worried sick about you." "I missed you, Mom and Dad," Bingo cried out as she hugged them both. "We missed you too, mate," Bandit replied, returning the hug. Then all of them got together and showed a group hug. "Aw," Layla said. "Thanks, Judo, Layla, and Jean, for letting us know what happened," said the cop. "You're welcome," said Jean. The scene then showed the onlookers as Mackenzie, Rusty, Coco, etc., who had gathered around the cabin to find out what's going on. They began cheering and clapping for Bluey and Bingo being reunited with their parents. The last shot of the episode was the police car that had the stranger in it, driving off in the distance. The camera then panned up to show the sunset about 5 seconds before the credits had finally come on, bringing this episode to a close. Although this episode had a happy ending that melted my heart, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. The storyline was dark and unsettling, but I found myself questioning, why would the creators of the show choose to create such a storyline? I remember being relieved when the episode was over, and I couldn't wait to watch another lighthearted episode to lift my spirits. Looking back that day, I realized how powerful storytelling could be. Even a show I loved and trusted could surprise me with an unexpected and unsettling plot. It made me realize that sometimes we just need to be prepared for the unexpected, even when things we think we know well. But the episode still remained in my mind. Who sent that mysterious package in the first place?